Hey YouTube, it's Faye. Welcome back to my channel if you came here from part 1 or part 2 of my O2O Transmission Fun series. This is part 3, and for today I'm going to be removing and replacing my clutch. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be doing is removing the flywheel. I know what you're thinking. Hold that thought. The bolts look like this. They're the 12 point, and you think that they're a 10, but they're not. They're a 9. Okay, so I'm going to start by going around and just breaking all the bolts loose in a star pattern, and then I'm going to loosen them slowly and just eventually take them all the way out. Okay, so here we have it. Here we have the clutch disc. You can tell I put a little bit too much grease last time in it, so sorry. And you can see, look at all that nastiness in there. So I totally don't want that on my face. And then obviously if your transmission is meant for your engine, or I guess meant for your vehicle, then ordering isn't that big of a deal for you. Just look up your make and model. But for me, this transmission is not factory for this car. So if you are going to be swapping in a new O2O transmission, or you are unsure because you're not sure where the O2O transmission in your vehicle came from, that is a really good video to watch before you go ahead and do this. But yeah, if you already have your clutch kit and you know that it's right and you're ready to go, then awesome, this is the video for you. So let's get right to it. Okay, and here we have our lovely flywheel freshly removed from the engine, and you can actually take a peek up. Eek! There's where it came from. Now there is a special tool that Volkswagen recommends to keep this in place that actually attaches to, actually will sort of wedge its way in the side of these teeth, and then it will attach to, actually I think it is this point on the engine. So there is a picture in my Bentley manual of that special flywheel holding tool with the Volkswagen part number, but I bet just showing this to you, a lot of y'all could probably just make your own version. I'll show you what I do. Okay, so as you can see, I'm on the passenger's side of my lovely little car, and I've got a couple tools here. I've got my breaker bar with my 19mm 12-point socket, or triple square, because that is the crank pulley bolt size for my engine, which of course is the 93 2-liter or ABA engine out of a Golf or Jetta. Now, that you could also use a 3/4, but 19 because metric, because Volkswagen. I also have this little bungee. So all I'm going to do is turn my wheel to the side here so I can access my crank pulley and thus my crank bolt. And all I'm going to be doing is pretty much putting the socket on the pulley bolt and then wedging my breaker bar up against the control arm, and then with my little teeny tiny bungee, I'm going to attach the end of the breaker bar to my control arm, just so that when I go to the other side to loosen my bolts, I know it's not going to fall off. See what I did there? Super simple. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is remove this retaining ring that holds in our clutch release plate. And this is pretty simple, just do with a flathead screwdriver. Just be really careful, wear safety glasses. So there is that spring. You can see how worn one of those holes is. You see how one of them's almost oval instead of round. Weird. And then here we have our 6 bolts. These are 17mm bolts, and when you put them on, you use Loctite. So these are going to be really hard to remove. So here I go. And now they're loose enough that I can just take them out with my regular battery operated impact. And there's this little plate. There we go. And at this point, of course, I totally want to inspect my rear crank seal, aka the rear main seal. And if this is leaking at all, now is absolutely the time to replace it. Another thing you see is that the bolt holes are not even. They only, like this only bolts on one way. See, these two are really close together. You can't really mess that up. In the manual, it actually says to index this, the pressure plate and the flywheel if you're going to be reusing them. Obviously, I'm not going to be reusing my pressure plate, just my flywheel. So. Alrighty, so now that I have removed all of the old parts from my car, it is time to put the new parts on. So I got my parts place order in the mail just the other day, so I get to open that up. Alrighty, here we go, my new clutch kit and etc. For starters, here's my clutch alignment tool. Isn't that funny? I bet you've never seen a clutch alignment tool that looks like that before. Or I don't know, maybe you have if you have an older Volkswagen. Next, of course, I see my clutch disc. And actually, right away, I'm noticing one difference is that on this new clutch, it says gearbox side on the side that, of course, faces out. And on my old one, it used to say flywheel side, which used to confuse a lot of people when they weren't used to that wraparound style flywheel. They would watch me do a clutch job and be like, you're installing that wrong, Faye. No, I'm not. But I understand why, why people think that. I've got this. I'm assuming this is, well, let's find out what this is. I will not assume. Aha, my bolts. Excellent. So I've got new bolts for my flywheel, new 12-point. And then I've also got these new pressure plate bolts, and you can see that they come pre-Loctited, which is awesome. Also here I've got this little bushing. You're probably like, what the heck is this? Oh, I'll show you. Just you wait and see. Next, we've got this clutch cable hardware kit. Just like I was saying before, you probably saw in video 1 that this little piece, the little rubber piece, had completely, actually I was missing one of the middle pieces too. Wow, it's been a while since I've had that, so I'll probably feel a difference when I install that, but we'll get to that probably in part 4. And this, of course, this is part of the bolt and seal kit. This is my rear main seal, and we saw mine is not leaking, but I didn't know that before I removed the transmission, and you're not going to know that either. So I totally recommend getting the whole bolt and seal kit just so that you have everything in case of emergency. You don't want to be disabled for a while because you want to replace a seal that you do not have. Also, these don't really, these take a while. I think that I can probably keep this around for a while and install it later if I ever need it again, heaven forbid. But I plan on having this car for like the rest of my life, so I'll definitely need this at some point or another. Hopefully you feel the same way about your Mark 1. or whatever you've got your O2O transmission in. Okay, next I've got a couple more seals. This is going to be for part 4 of this series when I reseal my transmission. So we'll get back to that a little bit later. Then I see at the very, very bottom, here is the new release plate in all of its glory. You can see that this piece, like before, my old one, I was touching it and it was sort of like moving around, making a noise. It was totally worn out. This one, it doesn't move at all. That one is in place. And then of course, my, little bit of grease. My beautiful new clean pressure plate, or shiny clean, obviously. It's not super clean because it has an oily coating on it to protect it from rusting while it's in storage, waiting for me to buy it. So I'm going to clean this off in a second. And there's one more thing in this box that I want to take out and bring to your attention, although I'm not going to talk about this until my next video because I don't need it now. You've probably noticed this weirdly shaped little object is my throwout bearing. Did you notice that I haven't removed a throwout bearing or even talked about one yet? That's because we haven't gotten there yet, believe it or not. It's not on this side of the transmission, so I'm going to talk about this one in part 4. You can kind of see what it looks like. It looks like a little, I don't know, it looks like a big shim, I guess. Alrighty. So the first thing that I'm going to do before installation is prepare this and clean off all that coating, and then prepare my vehicle for installation of my new pressure plate. Alright, so I've got my brake clean and a clean rag and cardboard. I'm just going to spray gently, just like you would a brake rotor. Get that coating off. And then a clean rag that's not going to leave any lint behind. And that's it.
Okay, and another thing I like to do, which may be like totally overkill, I'm not really quite sure, is to clean out these bolt holes, and I'm doing so with my well-loved little bristle brush thing here. And I just go into all the old holes and just do a little in and out and a little spinning around just to get all that old Loctite out of there. When I'm done with this, I'll spray a little bit of brake clean inside there, but not too much, because I don't want it to like drip down and get it all on my my crank seal or dry it out or anything like that. And then after that, I'll just blow it out with a little bit of compressed air, and obviously, you know, not make sure my face isn't in the way or anything like that. Of course, now to install, I'm just going to be looking at my indexing here. I see that right here we've got the two that are the closest together, and I'll just sort of match that up with my new pressure plate. Those two are definitely the closest together. I'm going to try not to touch the surface as much as possible, but I'm going to do one final clean with brake clean, so it doesn't really matter. Now, you probably remember me taking off this washer. So this doesn't come with the new kit, so be sure to keep this, set this aside, and hold on to it. And also take a look. Do you see that dimple there? That dimple faces out. So I go to reinstall, just make sure that I'm staying aware of that. My new bolts with Loctite. Always thread all of them in by hand. Once again, my 17mm 6-point. All right, and now that we've got them all to a point where they're tight enough that they want to actually like spin the crankshaft, spin the pressure plate, now of course it's time to torque them. Now I've got my torque wrench and I've got it set to 44 foot-pounds, which is my first pass. Now, Mark 1 folks, you are going to be torquing to 55 foot-pounds and that's it. I'm going to be using, however, the Mark 3 specifications to match my engine, and that is 44 foot-pounds plus a quarter turn, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. First, I'm going to do my final actual torque. Of course, once again, in a star or cross pattern. And then from here, I'm just going to take a Sharpie and draw a line on every single one of these bolts, and that way when I go to make a quarter turn, I'll know which ones I've already done so I won't accidentally mess up and do the same one twice. And once again, I'm going to do this in a star pattern. I'm going to grab my breaker bar, my long breaker bar, because I'm a little weak. Okay, whew. Glad that part's over. That's definitely the hardest part for me. But you see how they were all facing up or vertically, and now they're all facing across or horizontally, and then that way I don't accidentally over tighten anything. Now I'm going to do a final wipe down of my pressure plate. And now I'm going to apply a little bit of this lube. You actually don't need any more than what is provided. If you find yourself needing more, then you're probably using too much. But I'm going to apply this onto the pressure plate forks. I'll show you in a second. And like I said earlier, just a little bit will do ya. I'm going to apply those to, I said forks earlier, but I meant fingers. Just super lightly on each one of these fingers. Just put a little teeny tiny dab. And I think even what I took might have been a little bit too much. The last place that I'll be applying grease is in the center of my clutch release plate. I'm just going to take what little is left of my grease and put it right in the middle, right there. And that's it. Now I'm going to wipe my finger off on my clean rag so I avoid spreading more of this grease around, because we really don't want to have any sort of lubricant around our friction material. I'm going to carefully, there we go, install that guy again. And now for the flywheel. Earlier in this video, I think you probably heard me say that I was going to be reusing my flywheel, but am I just gonna put it on like this? You can actually probably see that the surface of this flywheel is a little bit uneven, just like we would resurface a brake rotor if we were going to reuse our brake rotor. We, of course, will first measure and make sure that this is still within specification, and then I will bring this to my machine shop and have them resurface it. Here's just a crazy look at the surface now that I've cleaned it up a little bit. Like you can see, I think some heat checking right there. I don't know what that is, but thankfully it doesn't go all the way through. At least it doesn't feel like it. We'll see. Look at that. I just got my flywheel back from the machine shop. Look at that nice finish. You can see that my heat check marks are gone, and so are those weird little scratches. So that is awesome. There's also some marks on the side from the machine shop. I think you can see right there and right there
from where my flywheel was actually out of specification. It was a little bit warped, so they were able to machine it back down flat. Another thing is that they had to make a jig in order to mount this onto the machine for resurfacing. So before you drop off your flywheel at your machine shop, maybe give them a call and make sure that they are able to even resurface a flywheel of this style. Okay, now that I've got my flywheel back, I can install my clutch disc, and you see that I've got the side that says gearbox side facing towards me, and I'm going to just install that face down right now in my flywheel. Then I'm going to do my best to line up, let's see, these holes. Now that I've got 3 bolts in, I'm gonna go ahead and put my clutch centering tool in there. And now back to my 9mm 12 point. And I'm just gonna go around and tighten every single one of these bolts by hand, just a little bit at a time. And I'm gonna do this in a star pattern or a cross pattern once again. And this is really important to do because that way you are putting the pressure on the clutch disc evenly, slowly, and it's helping to center it. Okay, and then once you've gotten them pretty much all snug and you're feeling super confident about it, now I'm saying snug, not tight, because I'm gonna torque these now to only 15 foot-pounds, y'all. That's right, 15 foot-pounds. So definitely don't go too tight here. Plus, eventually you're gonna be turning it, and the crankshaft's gonna want to turn, right? Here I've got my torque wrench, and I've got it set up to 15 foot-pounds. And that's it. Oh my gosh, it always shocks me how little effort, how little torque Did I even get that one? Okay. Each one of these takes. You know, you see people in the shop like installing these things with like impact, you know, air tools. It's like, ah. Okay, now I can remove my centering tool. Hopefully that worked out. And then I'm gonna get my little packet of lube again, and I'm just going to take a little teeny tiny bit. Just a little dab will do ya. And lubricate the splines. Maybe a little more on that side. Not too much though, nothing crazy. All right, now we're ready to install our transmission.
Hi, chicken. How's it going?